In this video, archaeologists are ready to shock you with their new finds. They found several sacks of flour that are over 3,000 years old. They found an ancient road at the bottom of the sea and the oldest human footprints in Germany. And I will also tell a story about a man who lived on a deserted island. Check out this video for all this and more. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Semi-precious stones in the sewers. Right under our feet in the English city of Carlisle, archaeologists have discovered amazing ancient treasures from the time of the Roman Empire. Just think, exactly on the spot where the British now play cricket, once there were large pools of Roman baths. These baths were very popular among soldiers and their wives who lived in the 3rd century. Do you know what our archaeologist friends found in the drainage channels of these baths? They found a whole collection of semi-precious stones that seemed to have accidentally fallen and were lost in the seething waters of the bath. Imagine, these baths were like royal palaces, big enough to accommodate 1,000 soldiers and their wives. It's time to dig, and here's what archaeologists found. Hundreds of glass beads, dozens of women's hairpins, ancient coins, and of course, these amazing stones. A total of 36 were found. These were small but very beautiful stones carved from amethyst, jasper, and other semi-precious minerals. Each of them depicted various Roman gods and goddesses. But the question remains, how did these decorations get into the bath drainage system? In ancient Rome, people loved to wear rings with beautiful gemstones. However, these stones were kept on the rings thanks to a special glue, which unfortunately could weaken in hot water. And so, while the Romans enjoyed their bath, the stones probably simply fell out of the rings and fell into the sewer. But then why didn't they just leave the decorations at home, you may ask? Good question! In ancient Roman bath, before entering the pool, people took off their clothes, remaining only in special sandals. Some people hired servants to look after their belongings, but there weren't many of them. In most cases, the attendants of the bath watched over the stuff. However, there were occasional thefts, and some Romans decided to take the risk of taking all their valuables with them to the bath. And it seems that some of them have been lost forever, leaving us with magnificent artifacts to study and admire. Perhaps under our feet, there are mysterious jewelry of antiquity, which one of you will definitely discover someday. Write in the comments if you dreamed of finding a treasure of precious coins or ancient treasures, and be sure to tell us what was the most valuable thing you found throughout your life. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The oldest diamond in the world. Now I will tell you again about precious stones, only very ancient ones. The story will not just be about a diamond, but about the oldest diamond on Earth. Just like in movies or treasure books, isn't it? An international team of scientists discovered this unique stone in Russia at the Udachная diamond deposit, which translates as lucky. Here the name itself speaks of greater luck for the miners. Measuring only 0.3 millimeters, this diamond is smaller than the head of a pin. It lived a very long life, and scientists were able to determine its age using sophisticated methods that sound like real magic. Isotope dating. Scientists said that the diamond was formed deep underground at a depth of about 140 kilometers. It was very hot there, about 900 degrees Celsius, and the pressure was huge, 37,000 times more than on the Earth's surface. A diamond is 3.7 billion years old. But the most amazing thing is that this diamond deposit is located 20 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, very close to the place where polar bears live. It was here in 1955 that the Soviet geologist Vladimir Shukin discovered this lucky pipe, and then a whole city was built here for diamond mining. And in this pipe, huge diamonds were found, one of which was named after the great Russian poet Alexander Pushkin. Ancient Astra tomb. In Spain, in the place where the sleeping giant lives, archaeologists have discovered a treasure that is 5,000 years old. And the sleeping giant is actually a huge rock in the region of Andalusia. The treasure they found is an incredible stone tomb called Piedras Blancas, which translates to white stone. And so archaeologists are sure that this tomb was built at the same time when the most ancient megaliths were created in Antiquera. This is about 3000 BC. They even found ceramic offerings next to it. But what is even more amazing is that this tomb was built for a reason, so that it is precisely aligned with the stars. Yes, just like in a sci-fi movie. This means that ancient people used it not only as a tomb, but also as an observation platform for studying the starry sky. They knew where and when important astronomical events such as the solstice and equinox would occur, and most likely they held special rituals and celebrations at this place. These amazing discoveries shows how smart and resourceful our ancestors were. They created incredible structures that served not only as a refuge for the dead, but also as a tool for understanding the world around them. And here we are, thousands of years later, continuing to learn from them thanks to these amazing discoveries. Stone road at the bottom of the sea. Have you ever heard of roads that are underwater? So archaeologists have discovered just such road in the depth of the sea near the island of Korčula in Croatia. This stone road, located at a depth of about 5 meters underwater, is over 7,000 years old. Imagine, people who lived long before the construction of the Egyptian pyramids could walk on it. Scientists believe that the road once connected the island of Korčula with a part of the land, which is now flooded by the waters of the Adriatic Sea. It's kind of complicated, isn't it? But imagine a road that goes from the island straight into the sea and disappears into its depth. Isn't that cool? This road was so large that its width reached 4 meters. Archaeologists claim that it could have been built by one of the ancient civilizations, possibly the Quark culture. The researchers discovered it thanks to satellite images, and now they are trying to find out exactly where this mysterious road led. Scientists have even found an artificially created island on this underwater road. They collected wooden fragments from the top of an underwater hill that once had a settlement. Radiocarbon analysis has shown that these fragments are dated to the 5th century BC. With the help of these discoveries, we can look into the past and imagine how our ancient ancestors lived. They created amazing structures that still amaze us with their complexity and skill. And who knows what else they left for us at the bottom of the ocean. Ancient bakery in Armenia. I will tell you about an amazing discovery which is like from a fairy tale. Imagine an old bakery, a place where they bake delicious rolls and bread. Now imagine that this bakery is not on the corner of your street, but in Armenia. And it is not 10, not 50, or even 100 years old. It is 3,000 years old. Do you believe that bags of flour that were hidden in the ground are still preserved in it? Archaeologists have found this bakery in Matsamor, Armenia, in the remains of a huge building that once housed ovens that unfortunately burned down in a fire. But the most amazing thing is that there were still bags of flour. They looked like ash stains, but the scientists tested them and now they are sure that this is flour. At first, the building was a public place, but then ovens were placed there and it became a bakery where people baked bread from wheat flour. Later, there was a fire and the building collapsed. Only the stone bases of the columns and charred fragments of wooden beams and roof sheathing remained. It is interesting that the flour in those days was used for divinatory purposes. Perhaps this bakery had some special meaning for the people of that time. This is still a mystery, but we hope that scientists will be able to solve it too. So guys, the next time you eat freshly baked bread, remember that bakeries were an important part of the life of our ancestors already 3,000 years ago. Dead wheat grains. We have an exciting story from the world of archaeology ahead of us. Carefully, we are moving back 7,000 years. Have you ever heard of Landshut? This is a small town in Germany where archaeologists recently made an amazing discovery. They dug and suddenly found traces of an ancient settlement of the New Stone Age known as the Neolithic. And do you know what they found there? Under the rubble of a collapsed stone hearth, 5 kilograms of burned cereals were found, a mixture of different types of wheat that were grown in the Neolithic era. Imagine our ancient ancestors used these cereals to make bread, perhaps for winter storage. However, something went wrong, and the oven in which they dried the grains collapsed. The cereals were burned, but they have perfectly preserved to this day. Maybe there was a fire, who knows? This is a very rare and important case for science, because usually organic materials used by people in ancient times are not preserved to this day. These burned cereals were sent to a special laboratory in Vilnius for further study, and this is what they found. 90% of the mixture consisted of cereal which had long since disappeared from the face of the earth. This type of wheat, called new gloom wheat, has only been found a handful of times in the history of archaeological sites. Well, an unfortunate fire 7,000 years ago gave us a unique opportunity to look into the past and learn more about the lives of our ancient ancestors. As they say, a fire is not as terrible as its echo in history. The oldest human footprints in Germany. Imagine a huge lake surrounded by sparse birches and pines and dense thickets of grass on the shore. This is Germany, only about 300,000 years ago. Giant elephants, rhinos, and other majestic creatures of that time came here to drink water, and on the shore of this lake, exactly where the city of Schöningen is now located, the Heidelberg people, our ancient ancestors, left their traces. Scientists accidentally found footprints imprinted on soft silt and then petrified. And this is simply amazing because these traces were left by an adult, a teenager, and even a child. Maybe it was a family outing or someone playing on the beach, we can only guess. Who were these Heidelberg people? They lived in Europe and Africa about 130,000 years ago and are considered our distant ancestors, the direct predecessors of the Neanderthals. They chose places to live near lakes or rivers where you could always find something tasty, fruits, berries, mushrooms, and much more. But people were not the only ones who left traces in Schöningen. They also found paw prints of large land animals of that time, extinct species of elephants, and even traces of a rhinoceros. By the way, such prints of rhinoceros were found in Europe for the first time. Ancient birds in the Temple of Isis. Have you ever heard of the ancient city of Pompeii? Stuck in time after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Today we will travel to it to find out about one interesting find. Archaeologists have made an amazing discovery of the Temple of Isis, one of the most popular goddesses of ancient Egypt. But wait a minute, what is an Egyptian goddess doing here? Oh guys, Isis was so adored that her cult even got to ancient Rome. So even in Pompeii she had her own temple. During excavations, archaeologists discovered something unusual. The remains of birds, many birds. Experts suggest that the ancient inhabitants of Pompeii held a feast in honor of Isis to appease her after the temple had to be downsized. A terrible earthquake damaged the temple in 62, and the priests probably decided that they needed to calm down the offended goddess. Imagine 3 priests in just one day arrange a feast. They eat birds prepared for Isis as a symbol of atonement. On the fiery sacrificial altar, dishes of chickens, geese, and pigeons are prepared, and the remains of a pig and mollusks lie on the floor. All this is an offering to Isis in the hope of her mercy. Interestingly, Isis was often depicted with bird wings. Maybe that's why birds were sacrificed in her honor. This find confirms that birds played an important role in the cult of Isis. So the next time you look at a bird, remember this story. Really, in ancient times, birds could be part of a great religious ritual. Remains of 2 men in Pompeii. And one more story from the ancient city of Pompeii, where a new unique discovery was made. Archaeologists have found the remains of 2 men who scientists believe died during the terrible eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The skeletons were found under the collapsed wall, and apparently these people were adults, about 50 years old. Anthropologists carefully examined the bones and concluded that they died when the building where they tried to hide from the volcanic eruption collapsed on them. One of them even managed to raise his hand to protect himself from falling debris. In the same room where the remains were found, archaeologists found beads from a necklace and several ancient coins. This will help scientists learn even more about how people lived in those days. Now imagine that Mount Vesuvius, which seemed to be just a beautiful mountain scenery, suddenly erupts, throwing hot lava and poisonous gases into the air. The city of Pompeii, where more than 20,000 people lived, was completely buried under a layer of ash and stones. Most people managed to leave the city before the eruption, but about 2,000 people died. The great eruption of Vesuvius lasted only 17 minutes, but those 17 minutes changed the history of the city forever. Robinson by choice. Saint Helena, remember it? It was there that Napoleon Bonaparte spent the last years of his life. But this tiny island has another story, and no less amazing. Let's imagine an ordinary soldier named Fernand Lopez, who was the only inhabitant of this island for 30 long years before the arrival of Napoleon. Imagine a ship of Portuguese sailors in 1502 accidentally stumbles upon this island. The water here is clean, there are enough trees, but there are no people, only birds in the trees. The sailors decided to build a kind of outpost here. They built houses, brought in cattle, and planted a garden. Well, Lopez Lopus became the first inhabitant and lived here most of his life. Now guys, it's going to be a tough one. Once Lopus served in the army and even took part in the conquest of Goa, but having become the commander of the garrison, he went over to the side of the Muslims, and for this he was severely punished. They cut off his hand, cut off his ears and nose, but even with that look, Lopus managed to get the forgiveness of the king of Portugal. However, in his heart, Lopus was ashamed of his disfigured appearance. When his ship docked at St. Helena, he asked to be left there forever. That's how Lopus became a hermit, living in a cave, hunting birds and growing vegetables. His story inspired the Portuguese king, who invited Lopus to make a pilgrimage to Rome. The Pope forgives him and offers to fulfill any desire, to which Lopus asks to return to his island, and he lives there until his death in 1545, hospitably helping every arriving sailor. Not only emperors can glorify the island, but also a simple soldier like Ferdinand Lopus. After all, even among birds and trees, even alone on an abandoned island, you can live a full life. Every ship, every sailor passing by this island remembered Lopus, his hospitality and his difficult fate. He became part of the history of St. Helena along with the famous Napoleon Bonaparte. Would you like to live on a deserted island by yourself or with your soulmate, and forever abandon the internet and TV? Write about it in the comments below the video. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!